Do you want more? More time, more balance, more love, more sex, more money, more real, and less bullshit? This is the Women Wanting More podcast with Dr. Karen Osborne. Real life, real stories, plus real tips to get you more of what you want.
So I just heard the most fascinating conversation that I want to share with you. What I heard from it in one of the Oprah Super Soul Sunday podcasts with a spiritual teacher who is a Sufi. Have you heard of Sufism? Sufism. Sufism is basically about love, and that there is no... You can be Christian and be a Sufi. You can be Buddhist or Muslim, be Sufi. Like anyway, just go and Google and stuff. But this is the conversation that really hit me. So he talks about his own spiritual journey, that the Llewelluyn was raised Christian, and but he said he was sitting on, he's from London, the tube, so the subway, at the age of 16, and he read this Zen poem, and he said something just like opened up inside. He said it was almost like that was like the key that began things. So then he decided, he started to meditate, and then he I guess had his first spiritual teacher at the age of 19, so 3 years later, and thought he knew stuff. He'd been doing yoga and meditation and studying and everything. And he said then the next things that began to happen in his spiritual journey were painful, specifically because of the ego breaking and it being very painful, and thinking that he knew all this stuff. But and again, they talked about the pain of that, and I know, I've listened to a lot of these Oprah Super Soul Sunday conversations, have read a lot and reading a lot, and a lot of spiritual people that believe that we have to go through some pain to get to something bigger, greater, more loving, the gift, that we have to go through these things. And I also hear a smaller portion saying, no, we don't have to. That's like a fallacy, that you somehow have to go through pain to experience the joy or the love or whatever it might be. And I'll put the link in the show notes, by the way, for the Oprah Super Soul Sunday, because it's beautiful and lovely, and you need to listen to it. But when he said that, the spiritual journey was very, very painful, and here's why: because of the ego, and it's the letting go of that ego piece of you. And when Oprah said, well, why does it have to be so painful? And he said, it has to, because your heart has to break. And as soon as I heard that, I was just like, I instantly stopped the podcast, started crying, composed myself enough to have this conversation, and feeling like we need to speak into this. That your heart has to break. And I started to listen a little bit more of the conversation. I'm like, let me just kind of like see this through and share with you what I really hear from this. So number one, spiritual journey, your journey to God, spirit, source, whatever it is painful. It is not an easy path. And I believe that is why most people will kind of like numb. Let me actually get outside. I'm going to walk. I got to walk and move. That most will kind of, numb about it, right? Maybe maybe this has been you, and I don't judge you with this at all, sister, but maybe you've heard the whisperings, you're hearing something, you're feeling something, you're like, nope, that's too painful. Let me go back to what's the post on Facebook? What's the, who loves what on Netflix? I need something to binge and essentially /numb myself with, right? So maybe this has been you. Maybe you're going through it right now, because I can tell you right now, I certainly am experiencing a lot of pain, a lot of shit coming up. It's very unnerving. It's very disheartening. It's very like, what the fuck am I doing? It shouldn't be this way. It's been 3.5 months. Like, why? God, what do you want from me? What am I to experience in all this? What is the lesson in all this? Why does this have to be so fucking painful? And so the way that I heard this for me, your heart has to break. Your heart has to break in order for you to create something new. In order for you to really, not even just become new, but remember who you are. For you to go back to who you are, you have to break. There's sometimes when you take a look at, say, like a new building, that sometimes you have to completely demolish what was there in order to build something beautiful. I look at where I live here in Victoria. Beautiful, beautiful city. I live in an older neighborhood, which is called Oak Bay. And so a lot of places in Victoria, they will do this, where there's an older home that's been there, and they will either do one of two things. They're either going to try to renovate it, which is the house that we're in right now. They've renovated portions of it. Now, it's an older home, so you can't renovate too much. You still have the teenier rooms. You still have the floor plan that's maybe not so open, which is the way a lot of us would like our floor plans these days. Maybe the windows are a little smaller, that kind of stuff, right? And so you can either do that, and that'll create some changes. But what most of the builders and most people end up doing, like we just saw this actually recently, a home in our neighborhood where they've renovated it, looked actually quite nice, and then they sold it, and then they basically just moved the house off the lot. Whoever bought it, I don't know, maybe they took down, because you can move houses, right? Like actual move the house. And they've taken the house off of it. And so what they're going to end up doing, without knowing these people, is they're going to build something new. And they often will build ones that are maybe like a little bit taller. There'll be a lot of glass, like a lot of very modern, very cool looking, lots of natural light coming in. So that way you get all the beautiful elements, all the green of Victoria. Depending where you are in Oak Bay, maybe you'll have an ocean view, view of the mountains somewhere, because we have ocean and mountains here in Victoria on the island. And they will completely break apart the old home in order to build something new. Now, I don't think it's that we become something new. I think it's really remembering who we are as we move back towards source, and really remember what's most important and what matters most. And it's kind of fucking hurt. And they talked about in the conversation that Sufi, part of their teachings, their belief system, is that you have to crucify ego. They use the, Christian analogy, right? Like the crucifixion of Jesus Christ. Like you literally have to kill ego. Break apart. And so the painful piece, I see this, back and forth the ego. Just so when I talk about ego, it's basically this, and this is from A Course in Miracles talks about it as well too. This isn't like ego, like narcissism, that's not ego. Ego is the piece of you that's also fear. And A Course in Miracles talks about there's two things that you're in. You're either in ego or you're in love. There is no other. And ego is fear. And ego is also guilt, and ego is shame, and ego is embarrassment, and ego is angry. Like that's ego. Or you're in a state of love. And it's one or the other. And love is joy and bliss. And what's interesting is, the spiritual teacher, Sufi, talked about that, you can't purely be out of ego. There has to be that little piece of it. Otherwise, you just kind of dissolve into nothingness. Like, we live in this planet on Earth, but there is this breaking apart of ego, and I believe that is the painful piece. That is the piece that I am experiencing right now. And it's like this, everything you knew to be true is not. It reminds me when I was in practice as a chiropractor, and it would be very hard for a lot of our patients, not all of them, but a lot of them was very hard to accept the idea, the paradigm of health that said, I'm responsible for my health. It's not about my genes. It's about the choices I make that either move me towards wellness or towards sickness, or towards wellness or away from wellness. And that my body's able to heal on its own if I give it the right environment to actually do so. Now, of course, there's always exceptions to the rule, but that's the general consensus. And how are most of us raised to believe about health and our bodies in North America? Be fearful of it. If you have a symptom, make it go away, make it stop, and it's all about feeling good. And so there would be this real shift inside of them. And some are kind of already walking towards that path of like, I've been through all this stuff. I understand that medicine has a lot of great pieces of it, and it is designed for crisis, and it saved my uncle's life, or it did this or did that. But the things I'm trying to have it do for me, like it does not work. I don't agree with a lot of those teachings anymore. And are moving towards, hey, you know what? I'm responsible for my health. I'm doing whatever I can do to stay healthy. Well, I'm not going to wait until I have a diagnosed disease until I do something to take care of me, or until I have a health crisis. And there were others that you could tell there was this real breaking apart of it. Like they were not going to let go of that belief system, which said, wait a second, if I have a headache, that is bad. If I'm getting a fever, I got to make it go away. And they were hell-bent on holding on to that. And so this process, when you go through this moving towards source, whatever you want to call it, whatever works for you, sister, right? God, spirit, the universe, it's all the same thing. That it means you got to let go of that ego stuff. You got to let go of that old paradigm of seeing health. You got to seeing life. You got to let go of that old way of being, which says I can control the things that happen in my life. When the reality is you can have some clarity on what you want, but then there's a plan you have, but then there's the plan. And there's a listening into what that source and universe and God is actually speaking to you about and urging you to do and directing and guiding you. And there's a pushing against reality, which ego will do all the time, but they shouldn't have said that to me, and how could they have done this, and why is this happening, and this is not what I want, and like a child having a temper tantrum. Ego, pushing against, resisting against. Your heart has to break wide open for you to really discover who you are. For you to remember who you are, right? Think of it like breaking wide open, like the shell of what you've been walking around has to split to get to the inner core of you, your essence. Your heart has to break wide open. It's going to be painful. There's no other way to really go about it except to just experience it, to feel it and go through it and to embrace it. And it sucks. And you won't know what's going on a lot of the time. But eventually, I feel, still in the painful pieces of this, that it will be different. That there will be that shift, there will be that change, there will be that, so this happened so I could see, so I could meet this, got it. And you simply let go, and you trust it, and you just truly surrender. And life becomes lighter and easier and less painful. Not no pain, not without pain. You're still going to have those moments. But there is a deeper trust to all this that I believe is not at the end of this rainbow, this rocky spiritual path, the breakdown, the whatever you want to call it. But there's a heart that's beneath the shell that you are protecting so dramatically, so forcefully, so angrily, that cannot actually birth the heart that's inside of you until it actually breaks wide open. And when shit breaks, it often hurts badly. That's part of it, sister. So there you go. That is my belief system as to why things have to fucking hurt so bad sometimes. And that why, eventually light does come after that dark. But you got to experience the dark in order to actually move through that process. It doesn't happen any other way. Hashtag sorry, not sorry, sister. That's just the way it works. So here's your more tip for today. What did you hear from my ramblings right now? I want you to journal about this and then email me and let me know what you heard and for you in this conversation, what came up for you when you journaled and actually got these ideas out for you to see. So email that to Dr. Karen at drkarenosborne.com. So I will talk to the next episode, sister. You becoming you remembering who you are, is just one step away from you being awake and aware and open every single day. I love and appreciate you.
To get the show notes of each Women Wanting More episode, including the How to Get More tip, subscribe to the newsletter at drkarenosburn.com/newsletter.